Thank you, Dr. Parker, and thank you all very much. It is a great honor to address this assembly, especially because I come from the dark side. As a hospital administrator, I saw the boxing gloves up there on the prior presentation, and I've observed that. It's very true, and it's very sad. But it is a result of the pressures that we all feel, and I think he enumerated them very well from the physician's perspective, which I've observed over a 40-year career of, unfortunately, physicians' lives being torn to pieces, personal lives, just like Dr. Parker's wife said, because of the strains of the provisions of care and then all of the bureaucracy that's added into that. And then you add into that the pressures on hospitals, particularly the last 30 years, which is basically my whole career, when the reimbursement mechanisms all changed from being cost-based to being diagnosis-related, where just the minimization of funds and reimbursement really put a strain on the ability to provide compassionate care. I came out of administration school and went to work for a Catholic system and was just delighted. It was a wonderful system full of compassion towards the patients, towards the poor, the vulnerable. And in 2 years, when we flipped over to DRGs, everything went focused in on finances, and you could palpably tell the difference. This morning, Bishop Conley focused his homily on the real presence of Jesus and how that brings us back into focus in everything that we do. I couldn't agree more, and it's so visible when you see it as a presence in what we're doing. And I think that's a problem that we've run into, is that we've lost that focus on the true purpose of what we're doing. The Catholic Church has led the delivery of health care from the time of Jesus Christ. We didn't run into these problems that we have right now until we started turning that over to the government. And we allowed them to come in and dictate. Why did we allow them to do that? Because they held the purse strings. While we did it on our own, we didn't have that problem. The same thing was in education in our country, and you see that happening. I'm going to make a shameless plug for three sisters sitting in front of us. Three of my best friends, part of probably the system that I admire most in our country, that has been able to keep their focus on the true purpose of the delivery of health care, and that is, as Padre Pio would say, caring for the twice Jesus, the suffering and wretched Jesus in the patients that we see. These sisters have been, their congregation was formed on perpetual adoration. From the time they were formed, they've been 24/7 in the 1800s over in Germany in front of the Eucharist. And they are in Mishawaka, Indiana. The Franciscan Alliance and the Sisters of St. Francis of Perpetual Adoration are in front of the Eucharist 24/7. I contend that that's why their system has been able to keep their focus. Now, Sister Jane Marie Klein has helped out an awful lot, too, and to keep that focus, and it's absolutely wonderful. Anyway, I divert a little bit, but only a little bit, because you're going to see in my presentation the focus that we have on what we're doing, a very exciting vision to bring Padre Pio's model of healthcare that you may or may not be aware of. Many of you are aware of Padre Pio, I'm sure, but I was unaware that he actually had developed an incredibly impressive hospital over in the middle of nowhere in Italy. It is now a 1,000-bed regional referral center, and it's owned by the Vatican. It's called the Home for the Relief of Suffering. I'm going to play a video that EWTN did for us. They interviewed Cardinal Burke, Raymond Burke, who is our Episcopal advisor, and me when we were over on a trip last May. And it'll give you a good overview, I think, of what we are doing, and then I'll address that more specifically. Could we run the tape, please?
On January the 9th, 1940, Padre Pio announced his plans to develop a healthcare project named Home for the Relief of Suffering. This project was fully realized, opening in 1956. And from that time onwards, it has continued to provide medical and spiritual care for thousands of patients. The Home for the Relief of Suffering is not only a modern-day hospital and medical research center, but also a new healthcare conception where evangelical values are implemented on a daily basis. This big campus constitutes part of that shrine of Padre Pio and is situated in San Giovanni Rotondo, Italy, 4 hours southeast of Rome. JPalazzolo's dream is to enrich the worldwide Catholic healthcare system with the vision of Padre Pio. To do so, Jair founded a non-profit apostolate called Catholic Healthcare International in 2004.
We plan on developing a campus called the Casa USA campus in the United States in the charism of Padre Pio as he developed his Casa Sieva della Sofferenza in San Giovanni Rotondo, Italy. On our campus will include a replica of a hospital built in that charism, the same values, the same spirit. We'll also develop a pilgrim shrine because there are thousands of Padre Pio prayer groups around the world that will come and pray with us and support what it is that we're doing. We'll develop a fully faithful Catholic medical school called the School for the Relief of Suffering, again, forming Catholic physicians to practice in the charism for the relief of suffering in a very secular world. And then a network of physician practices, fully faithful, fully Catholic in their delivery of health care.
Catholic Healthcare International signed a formal collaboration agreement with the Home for the Relief of Suffering on October the 1st, 2009, gaining permission to duplicate their model around the world.
Cardinal Burke has been our friend, our Episcopal advisor through the whole thing from the very beginning.
Of course, I immediately understood his vision because I had been a diocesan bishop for some 14 years, and I knew what had happened to Catholic healthcare and how desperately it needed to be restored to its origins as truly Christ-like care of the sick from the moment of conception to the moment of natural death.
The first facility that will go up on the campus will be the Pilgrim Shrine, because Padre Pio said the success of the Casa when he built it, as we are following the same way, has to be built upon the foundation of prayer from people around the world. And we've already got those people praying for us, but we want to have them come with us. And it's prayer, and in our case, Eucharistic adoration, because it's been my experience, it's been Cardinal Burke's experience, and I think every faithful Catholic has seen the fundamental impact that Eucharistic adoration has on the way, on people's faith and the way Catholicism is practiced, and the delivery of Catholic healthcare. We can't go wrong if we're built upon Eucharistic adoration.
The Church has this great gift to offer, a gift that Christ first gave in his care for the sick, but which has continued on through the history of the Church in Catholic hospitals, these wonderful congregations of religious women and men who devoted themselves to the care of the sick. And now we need to reappropriate that, to reinsert ourselves in the living tradition of Catholic health care. And I really believe it will happen. It's a tremendous work. It involves tremendous sacrifices, but it's absolutely needed. We can't do otherwise.
A part of the concrete healthcare project in the state of Michigan and an educational program, Healthcare International has engaged in a campaign to establish formal Eucharistic adoration programs in the chapels of Catholic hospitals around the world. Jair says that in order to provide healthcare, it's important to see the suffering of Jesus in every patient. Maybe the mystery of suffering will never be understood, but we need to realize that suffering does have great value. This is why it's important for Catholic hospitals to place Jesus at the center of their healthcare activities.
you can't ask for a better Episcopal moderator, mentor, and leader than Cardinal Burke in guiding us through this. And I think that gives you a little bit of an overview, and we'll get into a little more detail about the issues of prayer being foundational. But as you can see here, many of you know who Padre Pio is. He was a great saint, miracle worker, had the stigmata, could read the hearts of people that confessed to him. But what many people don't know is the hospital that he built. And he called it the Clinic for the Body and the Soul. And the Home for the Relief of Suffering focuses in on a different focus. It's not just caring for the body. It's absolutely that in the highest way with the best of technology, but it is also all of the issues that are relative to the theology of suffering. There is such great value in suffering, and it goes unattended. And if you think about it, when you walk into your hospital, it's a 300-bed hospital, has 300 people in there, very vulnerable, who Christ is saying something very special to each one of them. They're incubators of the soul, and we don't realize that and give that enough attention. It is Vatican-owned, and it does have the best of technology and care. The Padre Pio prayer groups are really a key thing also, and before he ever built this hospital, which he calls, by the way, his greatest work on earth, of all the things he did, this is his greatest work on earth. Before he started developing the Home for the Relief of Suffering, he developed an international network of prayer groups, formally chartered over in San Giovanni Rotondo. There are 3,500 of them now, praying for the work of the Casa and for our work, which is an extension of the work of the Casa. We have 125 plus of them here in the United States, and I'll tell you about, we just started up 2 new ones where we're focusing our work up in Michigan. That's a picture of Padre Pio and of the friary when he first arrived. This is the Casa on Inauguration Day, 300 beds, and Padre Pio saying his Mass there. This is the campus now today, sprawling 1,000 beds, and the whole community has grown along with it. As Padre Pio said, if it was just a solace for bodies, it would only amount up to a model clinic built by the means of your extraordinary generous charity. But on the contrary, it's pushed to be an active reminder of the love of God through the call to charity. The focus of Jesus in these patients is critical. The hospital was, the vision that we follow, which I'll address in a second, was stated in 1950, and we formally came together in 2004 and did the collaboration agreement in 2009. And the vision that we have was stated 6 years before the hospital was open. In 1950, Dr. Sanguinetti, whom Padre Pio chose personally to build the hospital for him, was quoted in their magazine as saying, "The Casa Sieva della Sofferenza should therefore be the first link in a great chain. It should be the model for many other innumerable casas with the same name and above all the same spirit, which must bring love to all of humanity, a program which would make us tremble with awe if it was not inspired by God, who is above all love." There was a purpose from the very beginning that it wouldn't just be one casa, but the casa charism would spread throughout the world. And that's our calling as we believe it to be and as we're bearing our work now. This is an illustration of our vision. We did build initially a large full-service clinic in the poorest of the poor areas in Appalachia called Casa San Pio, and then we turned that over to the Diocese of Lexington. And now we're working in the state of Michigan. I'm preaching to the choir. We have a crisis in Catholic healthcare delivery in the United States. We have a crisis in healthcare delivery, but particularly, and it is a shame, but we have a crisis in Catholic healthcare delivery. I don't know how aware you all may be, but we probably would not have, or as President Obama said, we would not have Obamacare if it wasn't for the Catholic Health Association and it wasn't for the Catholic Church. That's a scandal, and it's a shame. But at the 11th hour, when there was a group of people who were holding out, the Stupak gang or whatever, they were holding out, and Obamacare was not going to pass. And at the 11th hour, the Catholic Health Association and also the Leadership Conference of Women Religious sent ringing endorsements for it. And President Obama and Pelosi and Schumer waved that above their heads and said, see, even the Catholic Church endorses Obamacare. Couldn't have been any further from the truth, but it is a shame. We have 650 Catholic hospitals in this country, and unfortunately, we should be dictating how health care is delivered in this country with that sort of a grace that has been given to us by the Holy Spirit. And I dare say we've not been great stewards of what we've been blessed with. And so many, the congregations have the same story over and over again, where 5 sisters, 5 brothers came over on a boat around the turn of the century with not a penny in their pockets, and they were absolutely blessed. A doctor would come with them, a house would be donated, then they had a hospital, and now we have multi-billion-dollar corporations that really are, to a great degree, unfortunately, focused on the finances more so than they are on the care of the real assets of the Catholic Church, and that is the sick and the dying. And there are all kinds of shenanigans that are played to restructure things, to show in joint ventures with different organizations to make it look like we're being faithful in what we're doing. But we're working our way around. And unfortunately, too, and I don't mean to be too provocative, but our bishops do not seem to want to take on the challenge to be able to really push the stewardship, the appropriate stewardship of this amazing blessing that we have with all these resources. So we do what we have to do, and that's where we're doing what we're doing, you're doing what you're doing. And the good Lord takes individuals, small people, and does amazing things, and he has all the way through salvation history, and he does it again here. What do we need? We need a renewal in Catholic healthcare delivery in this country. I want to spend a few moments on this. This is these next 2 slides, really critical slides. And they're basic, they're fundamental. We had a retreat in 2012 over in Rome, our leadership team, and we asked Cardinal Burke to speak on Catholic healthcare delivery in a secular world. And he spoke about the whole history of healthcare delivery within the church from the time of Christ in his priestly and healing ministry all the way through up until the current times. And he laid out then 7 fundamental guiding principles, elements he called them, that if Catholic institutions would follow these, then they would flourish and they would be very consistent with the teachings of the church. And they're very, very fundamental, but it's so important, and we overlook these. But number 1, providers must know what it means to be Catholic. So administrators and people who run hospital systems, they must know what it means to be Catholic. And we must provide care in accord with the teaching, worship, and governance of the church. Teaching, worship, and governance of the church. We are a part of a universal church. We must have a commitment to the care of the sick and the dying in the church. The sick and the dying, you'll hear that over and over again. That's our main focus. It's an integral part of the church's mission from the very beginning, and it is under the direction of the Episcopal leadership, of the local diocesan bishop, and ultimately of the Pope. We are part of a church that has a hierarchy. We need to work with our bishops. The administration must be committed to the church's teachings on care for the sick and dying. It's not just the business side of things. Obviously, we've got to run a good business, but care for the sick and dying must be a main focus of the administration of the hospital. Providers must have a Catholic understanding of man, the whole man, body and soul. It can't just be the focus on the business side, and it can't just be the focus on getting people well. Ethical and religious standards, next slide, must be the priority for church-run religious institutions. It must be the binding norm. We cannot take financial support that comes with compromising conditions. That's a big thing, and the pressures are becoming more and more. We have to be prepared to do what we're doing, even if entities with power over financing and funding try to put conditions on us. We must say we won't do that, but we will continue to provide care. Do not say the Catholic Church should get out of health care because the pressures are too much. That is wrong, 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 wrong. We have a mission as a key part of the church from the very beginning. There is nothing more fundamental to the church than the healing ministry of Jesus Christ. We cannot walk out just because the going gets tough. However, we have 650 hospitals and a lot of doctors who really believe in this. So if we did finally and ultimately band together, we would be able to elicit a whole lot of power on things, and we probably wouldn't have to be fighting for conscience protections and things like that like we are right now. And we must avoid mergers and partnerships and joint ventures with large non-Catholic institutions. I know that's easy to say, but it is absolutely important when you get into major joint ventures and mergers with non-Catholic institutions, you are by nature compromising your ability to independently deliver the care the way that you know it needs to be done. So the 7 very fundamental elements, but very, very profound, and that's from Cardinal Burke. Our program that we're doing, we have a 3-pillared program that we're doing in the Diocese of Lansing. It is, as you will see, the main foundation is upon Eucharistic adoration and prayer. That is absolutely essential. The second foundation is loyalty to the magisterium of the church. We should be proud to work with our bishops, and they have challenges and we have challenges. You should seek your bishops out. You should build a relationship with them, and you should work with them and help them to understand how we can build this ministry within their diocese and that, but work together. And we are going to replicate a Casa Hospital, the Home for the Relief of Suffering. We're going to do a School for the Relief of Suffering medical school to form physicians and include components such as the theology of life, the ethical and religious directives, the theology of the body, Humana Vitae, all of those important things as curriculum components in their studies, in addition to spiritual components, so that we can form truly faithful Catholic, strong Catholic physicians to go out and to practice in a secular world and have a base to come back. And then help them to be able to develop the fundamental structures and elements of faithful Catholic medical practices. Bishop Boyer is the Bishop of Lansing. Cardinal Burke, you'll see also the Terry Schiavo Life and Hope Network. You all know, I'm sure, Terry Schiavo, her brother Bobby Schindler, has this Terry Schiavo Life and Hope Network, and we've teamed up together with Mike O'Day also, and he's the one that brought us together. And many of you know Mike from the Christ Medicus Foundation, and he's here today also. He brought the 3 of us together, and we are working as the leadership team to put this in. And ultimately, and probably one of the first things that we will open up, probably sooner than later, is a Terry Schiavo Rehabilitation Center, which will be a unit initially within another world-class rehab facility that will be dedicated to the charism of Terry Schiavo for patients with traumatic brain injury, so that they can come, be cared for with the understanding and of the dignity, their desire to live and the dignity of life, and to get them to rehabilitate back to the most normal life that they can. And God knows, not take away nutrition and hydration, the most basic of things that are not extraordinary. So we have a great team. The program we have, and you will see the things that we're doing. One thing that I am most proud of that we've actually just gotten up and running, and it was very difficult, and I would really encourage you to go to our website and join us on, is we have what I believe is the first ever global international Eucharistic Adoration program. And it's in the same charism as Padre Pio, to get people around the world praying for the work that we're doing and the work that you're doing. And anyone around the world can go on our website, sign up for an hour a week. Many of you all are adorers, and I'd love to have you come join us in this, so that the power of prayer in front of the real presence of Jesus Christ is so critical. So please go visit, join us, encourage your friends around the world to join us also. We have 2 Padre Pio prayer groups that we've already started up in Michigan praying for us. I told you about the Terry Schiavo Rehab Center. We're building the Santa Maria della Grazia Pilgrim Shrine, which is the church that Padre Pio said Mass at in Italy. And we're doing the hospital, the medical school, a Christ Medicus Foundation Center for Public Policy, and also for the development of medical clinics, Catholic medical clinics and practices. These are our leadership folks. That's the location of where we are in Michigan, right between actually Detroit, Ann Arbor, and Lansing. It's in the Diocese of Lansing. This is a critical thing. Everything we're doing is based on the reliance of providence. Pray, hope, and don't worry, as Padre Pio said. Padre Pio would not take funds to borrow from banks and from venture capitalists, because he said you would have to rely on them and in what you're doing. He relied on Providence to build his 1,000-bed hospital. We're going to do the same thing. And I know that there are good Catholic people that want to see this happening. The Terry Schiavo Rehab Center, it's going to cost probably $1 million per bed that we have in there per year to underwrite the care for those patients, because insurance doesn't care for it. We know that there are good Catholics out there that want to see those types of patients cared for, that don't want to see another Terry Schiavo case happen again, which they are, unfortunately, happening over and over again. This is our leadership group over when we were over with Cardinal Burke over in Rome. And this was the quote from Padre Pio the first night that he brought together his 4 people, I think, that they were, and he presented to them his vision to build this Casa Hospital. And he said, "This evening my earthly work has begun. I bless you and all those who will contribute to the work, which will become bigger and more beautiful." He considered that his work on earth, that's when it began, and he also blessed us because he saw that this was going to go forward, get bigger, and spread. I would encourage you once again, please go visit us, join our Adoration program. We'd love to have your support, and I know many of you would love to be a part of this type of a thing. We are not looking to build a system of hospitals. We are looking to build one model beacon of light that we can then be a base, both in the delivery, in the hospital and the physician practice side, as well as the school for the relief of suffering, which is very exciting. And we actually may have the ability, by building a school within a school on phase 1, of being able to get students enrolled within the next 2 to 3 years. So these are coming to play. It's taken a long time, and God is good, and He will provide. So thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate it.
I think we have time for one question. In the current healthcare model, it's very challenging for independent Catholic hospitals to stay afloat. Partnerships are becoming more and more necessary to stay open. How do you recommend that Catholic hospitals follow Cardinal Burke's recommendations?
Work together. We have 650 Catholic hospitals. If we were all committed to operating within the teachings of the Catholic Church under the magisterial guidance and leadership of our bishops, who are struggling as much as we are in this, if we all banded together, we would have a strength and power to be able to do things. And frankly, all of the thing we're talking about, caring for the vulnerable, the migrants, all of this, we have the resources to do that if we came together. We would have such a clear, loud, and powerful voice that the government would not be able to do the things that they're doing right now. We have just, unfortunately, we just don't recognize what we've been blessed with in this country. And frankly, some of us are not committed to the beautiful teachings of the church over 2,000 years, that if we stay focused, thank God for Pope Paul VI, who wouldn't give in to the theologists and all of the theologians who wanted to change the church's teachings on contraception. He was visionary. We have a lot of visionaries in the church today. Padre Pio is working with people. He is a very active saint. I dare say many of you probably have had personal encounters with Padre Pio. I know you have, because every time I come and speak at these conferences, I get people come up to me who say, Padre Pio came to me in this way. He came to my daughter in this way. And he's very active. This church has got the ability to do it. We just need to be committed to the church's teachings and work together.